rather than just leave it. Because like I think the safety argument is very
We're going to for the you guys sit here.
Yeah.
You just keep walking.
like you are a public figure, you have some bigger risks, you have to cover on it. Like why is a sudden increase in like the scale of how you're being treated? Like why is there a sudden increase in like your why is there a sudden increase in like risk to your safety? Like choosing a different route doesn't mean that you are more subject to like security risks or anything. So I think it's about pointing out these things and actually making sure that you cover the really conditions that are needed. Yeah.
No, right? No, I'm thinking about the new couple.
Oh yeah. Like you just start this one.
We tested, no, they hooked up and they did so much.
Shit, stop singing so
Yeah, wait 10 seconds, then just say something, right? That's it.
Hello, testing, that, hello, testing, hello.
Maybe try read out the motion, just the text. Read out the motion text. Let's start in 5 minutes.
This house as the Democratic Party would, this house as the Democratic Party would prioritize pushing Donald Trump's conviction as a political strategy. We will start in about 5 minutes. Just doing some preliminary testing of the audio first.
Yeah.
Sini. How do I put on do not disturb? Thank you. What are we waiting for? I think you're sharing it. I think GP can start already.
Okay, so welcome guys to the finals of Malaysian Debaters WSTC 2024. I am your chair, Afiq. Paneling with me is Lam and also Lim. So on side of government we have Tsun Jin 2, and on side of opposition we have cikb salmon skin. Before we start, just a couple of house rules. Please set your phone to do not disturb, as do not disturb the speaker speaking, as well as if you guys want to go out of the hall, please do it in between speeches, not during the speech. With that, I call upon Prime Minister to start the speech for the finals of this debate tournament. Go ahead.
Yo, can I not hold the mic? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Before I start my speech, shout out to Azwan and Haika for not giving up on sorry asses. Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judge, the best defense is a good offense, right? Judge, let's look at the first framing here. What do the voter bases of America look like? These look like the three main segmentation of voters. Number one, people on the fence. These are people who are probably less knowledgeable or also very much undecided on which party to vote for in the current election. Number two, this looks like them voters who probably are going to vote the Democratic Party no matter what happens in their campaigning. But also three, this also looks like conservatives will probably vote for Trump no matter what the Democratic Party pushes, right? Due to the cult followings. Just then also understand what are the Donald Trump's convictions. Of three, number one is the cause of the being the instigator of the January 6th riot. Number two, due to hiding and refusing to hand over documents and hiding them in his Mar-a-Lago residence. But also number three, some form sexual buying prostitution and then not paying up for for the sex worker. But then judge, understand now what are the interests of the Democratic Party. Number one, they probably want the easiest form of campaigning. They want something that is the cheapest but also the most direct form of ensuring that they get the most voters. And therefore now their focus is purely on the people on the fence, because these are the people who are able to ensure their victory. This is also why there are something called battle states, right? Where people are often undecided, and this is where the Democratic and Republican Party will pull most of their resources upon this, right? But judge now, also understand the Democratic Party also has an interest in convicting Trump, because once he is convicted, he is eliminated from the political race, and therefore it is very easy to grant them in an election and vote the Democratic Party into governance, right? Judge now, first argument, why does this buy the most voters? Judge, how does this look like when this campaign is put into effect for the people on the fence? Number one, as I've already said, they're uninformed and undecided, but at the same time, they still want a government that benefits them the most, right? Judge, understand that once we stress about Donald Trump's convicted crimes, I am able to prove to them how Donald Trump will be a criminal running the country, how they will do offensive acts during the presidency that are now allowed under law, meaning now the president cannot be prosecuted during his term, meaning now they have a high immunity to run the government to shit. Then now, this means that the people who are risk averse, who want at least some form of guarantee and insurance, will now vote for the Democratic Party because at least it's not Trump, right? What is this impact then? Three impacts. Number one, three importance of this argument. Actually, number one, this is a zero-sum investment for Democratic Party. They don't need to give out promises. They don't need to give out their stances on other issues. They just need to push, hey, Trump is bad, right? And with this, there is a significantly less amount of effort needed to convince the voters, especially when there is already predisposed and videographic evidence that can easily sway the voters, that then now moves on the priority of ensuring the ease of manifesting these benefits of ensuring that at least I'm able to sway the people on the fence, especially when, Judge, you take on account how the US political scene is looking like. Judge, everyone is fragmentalized and radicalized, right? These look like people who have an importance on the Israel-Palestine conflict. These also look like people who have an importance on the environment, so on and so forth, right? Judge, now the Democratic Party can campaign to all these specific voters, but then that means that they lose out on the other side. Just rather than that, I would, as a Democratic Party, I want to choose the easiest way out to garner the most voters, right? In which I'm able to run basically a slander campaign against Trump. This is a zero-sum game, which is the easiest to be achieved, and then now also has the highest chance of success due to not needing to state a stance for all these fragmentalized issues that would rather instead turn away the voter bases. This, Judge, means we fulfill in swinging the votes to our side at the first case. But yes, your POI.
Understand that Trump is convicted. It's not confirmed that he actually did those crimes. How exactly are your side supposed to ensure that these so-called loyal Trump voters are going to follow your side anyways?
Just they didn't listen to our framing. I've already said that we will never be able to convince these people who are under cult of following, right? Just understand now instead, if you're truly following Trump, if you're truly informed and say that, hey, Trump is the best, I will never be able to convince you. The main focus now is the people on the fence. This means they are uninformed about all these conviction issues. They are uninformed about other standards. This means then, judge, we need to prove to them that Trump is a criminal, even though he may not be convicted on some crimes or may not be prosecuted yet. Judge, this means then, due to the amount of massive evidence given about all these crimes, and simply due to the criminal justice system being slow, he has not been convicted yet. As long as we are able to prove the voter base, especially with the massive evidence I've shown you before, then we are able to sway the voters to our side. Instead, judge, let's look at opposition's case. What will opposition's case probably look like? Due to not stressing on Trump's crimes enough, this means then they need to campaign on other issues, right? This probably means they need to campaign about the Israel-Palestine issue and probably about how they will cater to Israel if the populist vote is in Israel. This means then they need to cater to a certain environmental structure because this buys the most voters, right? But at the same time, this means that the Democratic Party is running a risk, because then when you choose one side in a certain issue, this means that you will lose out on the other side. This is a very bad move for the Democratic Party, because especially if I mentioned how America's radicalized political scene means that people will have a lot of views. This means that the Democratic Party cannot guarantee success if they start campaigning about all these issues. Judge, I would rather run a negative case on the Democratic Party, because at the very least, I'm able to prove the harms of signing Trump into government, and then therefore ensure that at least the voters who are intrinsically risk averse, obviously looking like how people would drive safer and slower, even though this reaches their destination slower, because this prevents them from losing their lives. Right? This same level of analysis is why people vote in perhaps Anwar into Malaysia's government, because they don't want PAS to radicalize Malaysia, right? These are all, this is the very simple reasoning in Malaysia, right? Why do the Chinese want to vote in PAS? Why is DAP such a huge opposition party, it has such a huge voter base, right? Because simply they have seen problems with PAS, and with this same versions of radicalized society in Malaysia that is quite similar to US, I'm able to use that same level of analysis to show you that, judge, at the very least, voters are risk averse, and therefore they want to ensure that at least it's not Trump. At least it isn't a criminal running our country with no form of accountability, especially when you're a convicted criminal. This means we can tell the voters at the Democratic Party that, hey, he'll probably do it again. And now with this new law means that he cannot be convicted of his crimes, and therefore we cannot stop him from doing what he wants on his whims, right? This means, judge, at least at the Democratic Party, I'm able to show you, hey, Biden currently has no criminal cases. So even though he's not that popular, I'm able to ensure at least that the voters will vote onto him to ensure that he is a slightly better option. Judge, understand now that as long as we are able to sway the most votes due to all this immense truth analysis and how they will have to run the worst case, because then they will sacrifice some form of voters in one form or another, it means that side prop has never been stronger. Tsun Jin.
For the speech now, start the case coming from side of opposition. I hereby call upon leader of opposition to start his speech here.
Is this volume fine? Is this volume fine? will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The voters on the other side of the House is not loyal to the Democratic Party as a whole, and this will be further explained in some substantive later on. But before that, on to setup. What do we believe on the side of opposition? We define the Democratic Party as a party which prioritizes importance to equality and social and community responsibility. What do this look like? Maybe prioritizing and fully advocate for rights on all parts of minorities in the USA. For example, this might look like advocating for the LGBTQ community rights, advocating for the Muslim community rights, advocating for the women's rights, and also advocating for equal healthcare rights. And also we advocate for social and community responsibility, meaning everybody is actually included inside our society rather than the effects that the world of government is actually pushing in right now. Now, what do we believe as the side of opposition on the key phrase prioritizing pushing Donald Trump conviction as a political strategy? What do we believe is this essentially is blaming the leader and actually not the policies of the Democratic Party. Why is bad? 2 reasons. The first, it offers a bad image of the Democratic Party because people in the USA will eventually think that the Democratic Party is not actually attacking the policies that is the policies that the Republicans is officially providing. We on the side of opposition believes that you do not need to attack the leader because the leader has been conviction. It's not actually confirmed. And also we believe that on the side of opposition, it's rather better if we actually attack the policies that is actually being provided by the side of Republicans themselves. And secondly, most of the people in America doesn't care about the convictions of Donald Trump. This is because most of the people are actually influenced by the policy that is actually provided by the Republicans themselves, and by actually relying the whole strategy on the Donald Trump's conviction, it essentially just pushes these people to not actually care and just like, oh, I want to choose Republicans just because they offer a better policy for the greater society. Now, what are the principal parameters in today's debate is we on the side of opposition believes that we cannot change all Trump voters to vote for Democratic Party. This is because it is a matter of majority, and we on the side of opposition believes that our side confirms better and more majority of voters for our side rather than the side of government. Now, what are the burden in today's debate? We on the side of government simply will prove to you how our side can actually show that our value is much more valuable than the leader themselves. And the second is the opposition must prove to us how on their side these people will actually have the sense of loyalty towards the Democratic Party as a whole. Now, moving on to my rebuttals and refutations. Now, you said that this policy can only affect the people who are undecided. Let's compare this to our case. Now, we on the side of opposition creates a case where these people who are actually brainwashed by Donald Trump in the first place can actually decide to choose Democratic because we actually support the value that our side is providing rather than their side. They are not even attacking on the value that Donald Trump is even making. They are just convicting Donald Trump as someone who is bad and doesn't even attack the value of the Republicans themselves. Now, let me give you an analogy here. Yeah, let's just believe that you are in a primary school, and there is two prefects that is offering what can you do in order to improve the school society. Now, person 1 has stolen and has been convicted to steal a piece of bread at the school canteen, but offers 2 things as the school prefect. The first is lowering the prices of the school canteen, and the second, more recess time. Person 2 doesn't do anything, but realize everything to convict that person of stealing that piece of bread just because, oh, I want to win. And then this person only offers a small fraction of the benefits that person 1 can actually provide. Now, as an analysis, of course you would pick person 1 because, to be honest, person 1 offers a larger value and a larger policy and a larger change that can actually change the school society and actually provide change for the school students themselves. So that is what is the analogy on this situation right here. They are essentially just attacking on the leader themselves and actually blaming them, but instead you don't attack on the value of the policy that is actually provided by the Republicans themselves. Now, moving on to my substantive, but before that, yes.
Donald Trump has been proven to do bad things and create criminal acts that impacts the country in a negative way. With Democratic Party pushing this, doesn't that put even more pressure to eliminate Trump by imprisonment?
Here. Now, what are the current status quo of these voters of the Republican Party? This Republican Party just essentially wants lower taxes, so that's why they vote Trump. They don't care that Trump has convictions or Trump has committed criminal cases or whatsoever. They just literally just want lower taxes. That is what the side of the Republican Party actually proposes. We on the side of opposition is actually providing that if we attack on the values that the Republican Party is actually providing, we can actually say, oh, our values is much better. Come join the Democratic Party. That is what we say on the side of opposition. Now, moving on to my substantive on the key phrase of show value, not assault the leader. Now, what are the contexts? Is Donald Trump's convictions, his strategy is essentially meaning relying wholly on actually attacking these convictions that are not actually confirmed in order to win. And of course, people will question, oh, is this just a conviction? This is not even confirmed yet. So eventually, they will look at the values that Donald Trump has to offer, and at the end of the day, of course, they will choose that one. But why is this bad? It's because people don't care about the conviction cases, as I stated earlier. And the second is it essentially promotes the value that our side is essentially not providing greater value than the side of Republican is providing. Now, what are the best case scenario? Even if these people actually support Donald Trump and is actually not supporting Donald Trump because of the convictions of Donald Trump, they cannot be loyal, because even if they they believe the convictions and actually go to support the Republicans, go support the Democratic Party. Even if Donald Trump or the Republican Party as a whole offers a greater policy, of course, these people who are actually influenced will go there just because they offer a greater policy. That's what we say on the side of opposition. Their side of the case doesn't offer a good strategy, essentially just because they don't offer a good loyalty program. Now, what are the effects of my argument? Is it creates a sense of loyalty. Why is loyalty important? It's because in order to gain support and influence from every other citizen inside USA itself, you need to have people who vote for you. And what is the point of them voting for you? And if in the future they don't vote for you anymore? That is what we see on the side of opposition. We are clearly presenting a case where people will be there for the long term and actually votes for Republican Party as it continues just because of the policies that we offer. The second is a better sense of democracy. Why do we say this? It's because people actually believe in what we say and are not actually just saying, oh, okay, I'm choosing this because I'm scared of Donald Trump doing this anymore. I'm scared of Donald Trump stealing my money and whatsoever. I'm scared of Donald Trump not giving and stealing documents and not presenting documents whatsoever. We on the side of opposition believe that value is much more important than assaulting. And that's why you need to side with side opposition.
Thank you for the speech. Now I call upon Deputy Prime Minister to start his speech here.
Alright, so before I start my speech, I would say it's a very valuable experience to get into the finals. I would like to first shout out to my mom, my dad,
Anthony. Thanks for supporting me throughout the 2 days that you guys have been here. Where are you? Never mind. You are here. I see you. Yeah. I don't know why they switch places. Next, I'd like to shout out to my coaches and also shout out to my teammates, 6 years, friends for 6 years. My Bonzi buddy, the Weuy Marcus. Yeah. And yeah, and my friends, and thank you so much. So yeah, here we go. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. He beat Medicaid. He beat it to death. That's the words of Trump in the presidential election. Here I'll prove to you why we can beat Donald Trump using the acts of criminals that he has proven and prove to you why it's in the best interest of the Democratic Party to use this policy that has been proposed in the motion and why you should accept the proposition. Here I want to prove to you one thing, Judge. As long as we are able to justify that the values of the party is ineffective in this push and the people doesn't really care as much as being proposed by said opposition, then the win automatically goes to said proposition. Here is very simple here. One, I'd like to deal with the first claim, coming that of the certainty of conviction. I don't think this is one of the premises of the debate, because here we are already assuming, already in the info slide, you have already shown that it's already one that has been held to trial to court. If one that's not real, it wouldn't have been sent to court, and the judge would have ruled it in the 6-3 favor of saying that yes, probably that these things will happen and therefore there's a possible conviction factor. But even if you want to say that these probable convictions are not true, I believe the amount of popularity that it is able to get, the amount of realism and the amount of reality that it is able to change the minds of people is really enough for them to swing their votes towards and support this support the Democratic Party. Second is the uncharitability of Democrats' interest to fight for equality, because they're saying that, oh, the Democratic Party's interest is not to gain votes, but understand for them to get all their impacts, they first need to get into office. And the way for them to get into office is to take up the biggest contender of theirs, which is Donald Trump and the Republican Party. So therefore, I don't think that the policies can be rendered as one that's important and a premise that should be discussed in today's debate. But 3, I would like to say that their alternative here is to push policies, and they are saying that, oh, we are going to get loyal voters and so on and so forth. But let me prove to you that it doesn't really matter whether these voters will be loyal in the long term. What we want right now is to ensure that we are able to get these amounts of voters for this term, because understand that the political climate in the US right now is that Trump has a major following right now because of the sense of that he is now seen as the more normal and sane person compared to Trump, who looks incapacitated. So what I want to do now is actually to show that Trump is actually a worse person, which you would rather vote for a person who is incapacitated rather than a person who is a convicted felony, which will intrinsically harm the benefit and also the image of the country itself. Also, if you want to claim that the fact of that, oh, we are unable to change these kind of loyal voters to Trump, I believe it's one that shouldn't be considered because it's mutually exclusive. Similarly, as how that these kind of views are unable to also sway the loyal voters that vote for the Democratic Party. But 4, they're trying to claim that the party value is more important than the leader here. One is already untrue, because we need to understand the leader is the one that influences a lot of the party's decisions. So even though the party tries to push a lot of policies, when the leader gets into action, he is the one who has the capability to press the red button to actually send nuclear missiles. He is the one, not the party, who is able to do these kind of things. But even if we want to take this, the intrinsic brainwash that they try to claim on Donald Trump is one that is hardly to be reversible. So therefore, I don't think that you can claim and try to talk about these kind of stuff. But based on the political climate here, it's not one of the facts of the old times where it's Obama versus Mitt Romney, where they're going to fight within facts. Here, what we see in the latest presidential debate is that they're trying to attack and pointing fingers at one another and say who is the best. So therefore, I believe the best way here is to actually prove that the opposition right here is actually one that is a convicted felony and one that will intrinsically harm the benefits of the America in the long term. Right now, here, let me prove to you a few things here which is very important. The first thing which I'd like to extend on the argument here of why this is the most effective course of action. Why this is so important in this round? Because we need to ensure that the Democratic Party itself is losing a lot of its voter base. And in order for them to gain the most amount of voter base, we need to fulfill the cost factor, we need to fulfill the interest factor of the different parties. And therefore, by actually taking down the claim, by proving that your opposition, that the figurehead of your opposition is one that is bad, is the most effective way of actually trying to take it down. Instead of trying to attack the policies, which goes through a lot of back and forth, it's ineffective. Because we need to understand that American voting is coming really quickly and there's not enough time to prove. And also note the fact, Judge, that the Democratic Party itself has already proven that to render its own policies ineffective in the last term of Biden. So therefore, it's very hard for them to argue on the basis of policies because of the clear evidence that their policies doesn't work that well in today's world. Here, let me prove to you several tiers in my analysis here. Why we need to first eliminate deprive Trump from this election. We need to understand that Trump's large following and cult of personality is one that is very important, as already admitted by some opposition, that some people just vote for Trump not because of the policies of the Republican Party, because of the brainwash characterization that they've made. So the easiest way to take down Trump is not to try to attack the party, because the party doesn't really matter. If Trump actually goes to the Democratic, I believe the Democratic can win just because of the sake of Trump. So the main point of contention here is who can take down Trump the fastest and most effective way. 2 is that Trump has proven to garner more support throughout the campaigning period. But 3, the Democratic Party has already failed people's interest in the large term, which they have failed to fulfill 100% of their manifesto. So therefore, I don't think it's easy to, it's even weaker for them to campaign on the basis of policies. But 4, Trump has already proven to be more sane than Biden in the presidential debate. For the most of the people on the fence to actually want to sway to Trump, because they believe that at least we can make America great again. At least we have a person who is in a clear state of mind that can defeat Biden. Here, Judge, the second part of my analysis here is how we're going to eliminate or at least put pressure on Trump to be convicted and so on and so forth. I believe, 1, we need to understand that people have emotion and ethics. Think about it. If you're thinking of your leader is a person who actually is a sexual assaulter person, a person who commits crimes, a person who doesn't obey by the laws and the Constitution of America, who is seen as a liberal country, I believe the people themselves will be intrinsically hate this president, and they want to vote him out of office. But 2, we allow for the people on the fence to put more scrutiny on this issue, to at least pressure the CJS itself to actually want to vote, to actually want to speed up this kind of conviction to the Trump, which is directly aligning with the interests of this Democratic Party, because we want to ensure, at best, we want to have Trump being sent to jail before the election, but at worst, we have to be able to send him to jail or try to convict him to reduce his powers after the election itself. But 3, we're able to prevent Trump from getting into power and also manipulating issues. I believe the most important part here is when Trump is able to get into party, he'll be able to have some sort of influence on the Supreme Court, and therefore rendering this push of his criminal acts is one that is harder to be pushed in the future elections, because he's able to manipulate and change the views and perspective of people in the probably 5 years terms he has as the president. So I believe it's the most effective way for us to actually do and try to capitalize on the system right now, instead of waiting for the next term to want to and allow Trump to do things that we don't desire. But last, Republicans will now be less incentivized to put Trump as their leader, because we need to understand, again, Republican Party itself is not that strong. It's strong because of Trump. So if we are able to remove Trump, I believe the Republicans themselves and allows and see Trump as a bad person, I believe the Republicans themselves will also put pressure on Trump to actually want to try to remove him, and therefore weakening the stance of the Republican Party and allowing us as Democrats to prevail in the US 2024 elections. But the third part of my argument here is very important, because we're able to reduce burdens for the Democratic Party, which I would like to rehash what Oliver has been mentioned. Because 1, we need a lower cost, and we do not need to fulfill every single interest of the persons of the people in America. We don't have to simultaneously deal with the wars in Afghanistan, in Israel, Palestine, also the environmental issues, also nuclear problems, and also geopolitical problems with China and North Korea and so on. So I believe it's the most effective way and the most cost-effective and time-effective way to enable us to get into the office. But 2 is we allow for the lowest amount of burdens needed to be fulfilled after we get into office. So there will be a reduced amount of backlash if we try to promise everything, we try to fulfill and to satisfy every person. In the case that we get into office, I believe it will be harder for us to actually continue our term and reign in the future, and this proves why we win in the long term, because we're unable to fulfill all the manifesto. However, by winning just by the fact of having this zero cost sort of way of campaigning, we're able to ensure that we are able to win this case just because of the fact of the opposition is weak and doesn't require us to be in a strong position. But lastly, what is important to switch attention from internal party conflicts? Note that, Judge, the current political climate in this Democratic Party is that there is a conflict between Joe Biden now and also his running mate, Kamala Harris. So I believe that it's important that we actually try to overshadow these issues in the party itself and allow for the supporters of the Democratic Party itself not to decide whether or not you want Biden or Kamala Harris. But the most important part is to vote for the Democratic Party and actually remove Donald Trump, because we need to understand we need to unite the support for the Democratic Party instead of fluctuating between the two possible presidential candidates, which is very important in today's debate. But also important is that we allow for a common enemy and the easiest pathway to unite the political minorities and allow for not only the Democrats but also for all people that support the different policies to actually want to remove the criminal, which is an embarrassment and a humiliation to America's image as a strong country, but instead vote for a person who might be might be more mediocre, but at least will guarantee the stability, and at least he's not a convicted felony. For all those reasons, please stand with prop. Thank you.
For the speech, now I call for Deputy Leader of Opposition to give his speech here.
to note to everyone that my speech won't really reflect my political opinions in real life. I'm going to start off very slow here and clarify one by one what exactly should Democrats do. So first, I'll be answering two questions in this debate, and then I'll be going towards issues, and then the last substantive coming from side of opposition. The first question is, what exactly should the focus of Democrats be in this debate? Side proposition states that the main focus of Democrats in this debate is to convert these defenseless type of voters, the voters who don't know which side to vote. We tell you that there's a very huge flaw in their case, in their side of the house. Because we tell you that America is a liberal democracy. The majority amount of Americans nowadays want to opt into Democrats more simply because of the policies of the left-wing policies that Democrats offer. But understand here, if their side wanted to push for defense, their side also have to push for the people who actually want, for the loyal voters of Trump themselves. Because understand, that by just simply putting and emphasizing on Trump is a bad guy, it won't necessarily mean that these loyal voters of Trump themselves will go away and opt into Democrats at the end of the day. Second, is our strategy effective? Our strategy is basically left-wing versus right-wing. We tell you that this strategy is still used in status quo, and Democrats are eventually winning here because the majority amount of Americans are basically left-wing, and the only problem that Democrats have nowadays is to convert these Trump voters into actually opting into Democrats in the first place. If you still don't understand that, it's okay. I'll be pushing more towards this in issues. So the first issue that we have is throughout the whole case coming from their side of the house. The whole case coming from their side of the house is that their side wanted to push people on defense. Understand that Democrats should not worry at all on people on defense, because every single individuals have their own beliefs. Every single individual have their own thing that they have in mind. That's why on opposition, we want to push on the ideology that left wing is better than right wing in the first place. Because in status quo, the only way of the people of America themselves are moving towards left wing, i.e. like gay rights and stuff, is to vote for the Democratic Party in the first place, because these sort of things are not really offered in right-wing populism. Because people on defense should not be worried on both sides of the house. Now, the issue on what both sides should really focus on are the so-called loyal Trump voter base. Because we tell you that by pushing Trump as a bad guy, it won't really affect Trump voters. And again, I will elaborate this further in my substantive. The second issue that we have is that policies is not important coming from their side of the house, because simply they don't really care about loyal voters towards Democrats. And second, Democrats' policies are not left and whatnot. We tell you that policies are important. Even though a specific leader have made convictions in the past, even though he is a prisoner in the past, like Anwar Ibrahim, right? At least the amount of voters that we will gain simply because of the value and policies that they offer in status quo towards a specific political party is the dependent factor of what actually makes people to opt into that specific political party itself. The third issue is that their side stated that leaders are the one that initiate policies. So if we were to like opt into Trump will eventually do bad things and press the red button and whatnot. We tell you that America is a liberal democracy. We don't see leaders do bad things the chances of them actually doing bad things is really low. Because if Trump eventually do these bad things, Trump will lose a huge amount of voters inside of his own voter base, which contradicts to the main point of what Trump essentially is. Before I move on towards my argument, sure.
With the new presidential immunity in motion slide, wouldn't this allow Trump to therefore cause even more damage with immunity and therefore be able to run away with this crisis, but also therefore go against the risk-averse psychology of voters who don't want, at the very least, the worst case to happen? This looks like as well why people buy insurance.
Look, the problem on what both sides here is that we want to convert Trump voters into voting into Democrats. We don't necessarily care about the defense voters that their side have stated earlier. We don't necessarily care about people who are neutral, people who don't know which side to vote, because essentially those people have their own beliefs in mind, and those beliefs that they have in mind are majority moving and opting into towards the Democrats' policy itself, due to America being a liberal democracy and pushing towards the left-wing populists in the first place. This debate is not about left-wing versus right-wing. This debate on what the Democrats should essentially focus on is to convert these loyal Trump voters, these Karens, essentially in order for them to vote towards the Democrat Party, because their side can't really see that. Because if their side wanted to frame Trump as a bad guy, essentially, these sort of voters won't essentially listen towards their side at the end of the day. Now, moving on to my argument, why framing Donald Trump as a bad guy is one, funny strategically, and 2, ineffective strategically. Why is it funny? It's because number one, Democrats will then only focus on framing Donald Trump as this bad guy, as this malevolent, cruel guy in status quo, and don't deserve to be the leader of a specific nation, or don't deserve to make America great again. We tell you that this creates a lack of positive message coming from the Democrats themselves. Because if we focus on one single plane of strategy, this will then make it on one single plane of strategy. We don't really see the values of Democrats. What exactly is Democrats trying to push for in order to win this election? This will then make it difficult because it doesn't really show what the Democrats party essentially want. They attack on the bad guy, meaning that they don't attack on the root cause of this debate. Now, why is it ineffective? It is ineffective because, one, it gives a bad image of the Democratic Party because they necessarily don't want to attack on the policies given by Republicans. And the main problem on what both sides must solve is to convert Trump voters into becoming Democrat voters. Now, how exactly do we characterize Trump voters? We outline 4 main things. Number one is these Trump voters, these majority Trump voters often have very shallow policy agenda, meaning that they would do anything in order to express their own minds, not really allowing for open-minded discussions and whatnot. Second is that the majority of Trump voters are usually right-wing minded. The third is their beliefs do not flow with time, i.e. they want very low amount of taxes, they don't want gay rights and whatnot. Fourth is they don't want evolution of social norms. Like what we stated earlier, they don't necessarily want gay rights, they don't want Muslim women to wear the hijab in the first place. Now, what does this mean? This means that all Trump voters' agenda align with Republicans' policies, i.e. gun rights, restrictions on labor agenda, and what I've stated earlier. If we do a framing Trump as a bad guy strategy, these voters wouldn't mind if Trump is an evil and malevolent guy. And would just rather continue to voting on Trump simply because of policies and values that Trump give towards society. Now, let's look at another example, right? In Malaysia, ourselves, we have our Prime Minister who is an ex-prisoner, but still people vote for him simply because of the values that he offers towards a specific community. People still vote for Zahid Hamidi despite the 43 convictions that Zahid Hamidi has, simply because of the value that Zahid Hamidi offers towards a specific community to express in the parliament. Second, even voters who aren't siding with Trump, even the defense voters that their side so-called wanted to defend, see this as a very bad strategy. Simply because Trump is convicted, is not really confirmed. The other side is debating on the best case scenario where Trump is confirmed to be a criminal. A convicted criminal does not necessarily mean that it is a criminal despite huge amount of evidence that the other side stated. And in order for us to actually convert these Trump voters, these right-wing voters, we must provide and sort of educate them with the value of what Democrats' policies essentially are, instead of just saying and relying on one single plane on why exactly is Trump a bad guy. Because we tell you that essentially they won't really listen. They won't really listen on why you put and frame Trump as a malevolent guy in the first place, simply because of the fact that they are so-called loyal. Number one, they are very loyal towards Trump, and number two, the policies that Trump offers align with the policies and the sort of initiative that these individuals offer. Understand that this debate should not really be focused on the defense part of society. This debate on what their side should push on is to convert these Trump voters into Democrats in the first place. For all those reasons, focus.
For the speech now, I call upon Dr. Weuy to do the speech here.
Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. From the get-go, Op Bench has misunderstood the entire interest of them parties as a whole, and that is exactly why we've been winning from first. But first, into 4 call-outs of today's case, into how their case just doesn't make sense logically at all, right? Number 1, a big push from them is calling into question the truth of these convictions, about how, yes, even though there's this abundance of evidence, both photographical and video and statements giving under oath, but why it's still not a confirmed thing, right? Why is that not important in today's case, Judge? Number 1 is because our interest as a Dem party, again, why would we care about these convictions, whether if they're real or not, when in the end goal is just to actually win this politics debate and not win this politics election in the first place. So even if it isn't true for some ridiculous reason, it doesn't matter and it shouldn't be credited that these convictions are not true at all, right? So that big push about how like 8 minutes of their speech is just not that, right? But second of all, how it's the wrongful interest of this damn party they say that it's to fight for equality and justice. First of all, why is that untrue? Because we believe that since we've been pushing from our PM, right, this interest of these damn parties at the best is to get voted into office, is to get more votes, is to get voters, because that's what a political party wants at its core, right? But let's take their definition and let's take their interest, even that. Why is that not important? Because if you want to actually fight for this equality and justice, you have to get voted into office in the first place. And so it's a prerequisite for that to actually achieve getting voted into office, to enact their side of the house about how their interests will be even realized in the first place, right? But on to the other thing where there's been no engagement on our interests as well, when this is very important in today's case. Principally, they haven't illustrated at all as to why them parties would rather, instead of just give up voters and just rally up and say, I want equality, I want justice, right? So just assertions coming from their side. But third of all, Judge, how this lack of nuance coming from their side just doesn't help them at all, right? They stated that the US of A is a liberal country and the Democrats are winning, when it's clearly not. It's already predicted that in this upcoming election that without anything, Trump will actually win. Trump itself, a Republican representative, right, was voted into office 4 years ago. So this whole yapping about how Trump is actually how USA is actually a liberal and democratic country is just false, right? But why Trump will not do anything bad, as they have stated, because I don't want to lose the votes. But they fail to understand this cult of following that's been pushed forth by Oliver, right? And I'd like to restate that Trump himself knows that he has this cult of following because he's basically a celebrity in this conservative media, which the Democrats can't reach at all. And it is exactly why that there are these criminal cases against him in the first place, because he knows that he can abuse this cult of following in the first place, right? But fourth of all, how their model in of itself just won't work. They themselves have stated that they want to push for this policies, and they say that that our target isn't the people on the fence, and instead it should be the loyal followers of Trump. What's the problem with that, Judge? Because when they want to actually fight and win over these voters, what do they need to do? When they themselves have stated that their voters fight for gun rights, anti-gays, right? That they themselves, as the Democratic Party, will then need to enact policies that are in line with their beliefs. That means that it goes against two things. Number one, it goes against the values of the Democratic Party itself. Because now, as a Dem Party, you're saying, I don't like gays and I want guns. That doesn't look good, Judge. But the second of all, how it loses the original Dem voters as well. Because what would that look like for the olden and your original Democratic voters, where they fought for your original values? They wouldn't be voting for you too, right? So in any case, they lose on all fronts, right? But moving on to the two clashes of today's case and why we win on both. Number one, the interest of the Democratic Party is to win the election and get the Dem Party into office. So which side better fulfills that interest, Judge? Not only on the aspect of cost, where instead of just political campaigning and enacting policies which is not only resource consuming, time consuming, and to convince people, you need to actually host talks, you need to host these summits and tell people why these policies are good. They themselves have stated people have different values, and it is exactly why using this political strategy to touch on and tap into the people's emotions will work better compared to enacting policies that might sway some people but might not sway the others. For example, some people might have socialist values while some have more conservative values. How are they to guarantee that when they enact these policies, which are non-really realistic in the first place, can garner more votes than us when we tap into the pureness and the essence of human emotion? So not only do we fulfill the interests of Democratic better, but we also minimize costs as well. Moving on into which side actually gets more votes in a realistic world, right? The comparative here, Judge, is that these conservative political campaigning or enacting policies in their model versus our political pressure to the general public, right? Not only are we able to connect to people on the fence, which is still the main target in today's case because the cult of following of Trump is just so strong, right? Rather than these policies. But the problem with their model is that the people who actually care about these policies, who know about these policies, who are these people, Judge? These people are educated people. These people are people that actually involve themselves in politics and vote every 4 years. Who are these people not, Judge? The people on the fence. So by enacting these policies, only we are able to get and sway the people on the fence to actually vote for our party, vote for the Dem Party, and actually have this chance of getting elected into office, right? So taking their model into account where they want to sway people like on Trump's side, which is even more unrealistic and undoable in the first place, they need to explain why this goodness of policies can overtake and actually override our side by tapping into the emotional side, right? But let's get into the best case, worst case scenario, just for both sides, right? What does our best case look like? Not only are we able to get him out of the election completely, because in most two-party politics, it allows us to win by default, right? But we're just getting him out and convicted before actually going through the final election. But what does their best case look like, right? Okay, let's just say that they find some miraculous way to pull in the Trump voters, as they said in the model, okay? Conservative ways to these normal ways to garner, like political campaigning and just enacting policies, still time consuming, right? And in this short time span, and just don't cause people to care. The people on the fence themselves still won't care about whatever policies you enact, because look at Trump in current status quo. Despite all the terrible things he has done, he still has this loyal voter base, right? And that's their best case. It's still a shaky outcome to whether this guarantee of getting voted into office will happen at all. So unless they have proven that, I just don't see how they can win the case, which they have clearly not judged. But let's look at our worst case. Government's worst case in this hand is to at least reapply this political pressure to sway people on the fence, which are again judged the people in this case that matter the most, because this cult of following from Trump is just not going to be swayed by you realistically, in a realistic sense, right? So with these with this Democratic Party interests at hand also, we are able to principally sway them to actually relate to emotion and come to our side, and not to actually go through the hardships of enacting policies, political campaigning, right? Whereas their worst case, right, where even a lesser voter base will actually be garnered, because again, one, from their side of the house, if using their model, let's flip it over, right? The people that actually support Trump, there's no incentive for them to suddenly, oh, I want to vote for the Democratic Party because suddenly you enact policies that go directly against my view. They don't have that incentive to vote, and they have proven they haven't proven the incentive whereas people will just switch up their values, because they themselves concur that people have these values that are hard to align to. People have different values, whereas we just tap into the emotional side of things, right? They say that they are able to fulfill these interests of them party, but it is untrue in the fact that because we're our side exclusively, use this alternate form of political strategy where we can garner votes through tapping into their emotion. This sides not only with our damn party's interest to get most votes in the least amount of cost, but also able to get us voted into the office, which is the most realistic way of doing it. So if you don't want a criminal as a president, go for a win.
Thank you for the speech. Now I call upon government opposition with the speech here.
What is easy isn't always right, and what is right isn't always easy. Let's take a look at the strategy on side government. Basically, we tell you on side opposition that the whole strategy on side government is flawed because they are focusing on the people on the fence. we tell you that the strategy on side government is not feasible. This is the flaw of government side. They refuse to state the percentages of people who are on the fence. We tell you that on our side, the followers of Trump make up the majority of the elderly in the US state. The flaw, then again, on side government is their failure for them to state how many percentage of people who are actually on the fence that is on their side, that exists on their side, for it to be enough for them to win against the Republican Party. We tell you again that the people on the fence doesn't exist. Why so? Because number one, everyone has their own beliefs. It's either right-wing, focusing on tradition. This looks like no rights for minorities. This looks like gun rights for everyone in America. This looks like the banning of abortion for women to follow strict Christian rules in fairness. And the second one is left-wing beliefs. It's the rights for minorities, the rights for abortion, and overall equality and fairness in America. We believe that everyone has their own beliefs. It's either right-wing or left-wing in this sense. And secondly, we tell you that everyone has technology to know about the Democratic Party and about the Republican Party, especially in America. Everyone knows what they believe in. They know which side they want based on their own beliefs. That's how we see that on their side, their whole point of people who are on the fence is entirely not feasible to be used as their own strategy or the model on their side of the house. On to issue analysis. What's the first issue that was brought up within the whole debate? It is on the point of right-wing populists and their existence. Their side is afraid to take on the challenge of persuading people with old-time beliefs. For example, these people have old-time beliefs such as gay people should be in the country and women should be allowed to abort their children and that guns should be legal for self-defense stuff. On side opposition, we are not afraid to take on this challenge. Note that Trump supporters make up the majority of the elderly in America as their Republican policy aligns with what they want. For example, here is lower tax rates, gun rights and stuff. Understand that on side opposition, we take on a safe way. Instead of bashing their own leader, we push on the policies that align with what's best in the modern world, in terms of what's right, in terms of rights for the people and the overall economy of the country. Hence, we protect the face of Democrats in status quo instead of making us look bad because we are bashing the leaders of the Republican Party. Before further elaboration, of course,
with your own illustration of the conservative voter base being old and therefore entrenched in their own views, to sway these voters, will democratic parties need to sway to their own views, meaning that they case shift and therefore lose out on their justice?
Further elaboration upon this issue, how actually are we going to persuade this right-wing populists who are actually in the past stuck with their old-time beliefs? Because we show on our side, the right-wing populists, the goodness of our policy on the Democrats to their children and their generations to come. If they want to say that on their side, the Trump followers will not change at all, we tell you that on side opposition, we propose what's best for the future of the family of this right-wing populists. Because we believe that even right-wing populists are still human and humans can change, especially for their own bloodline at the end of the day. On to the second issue is on the case of conviction, either equals to criminals or not. We concede to that fact because they don't want to challenge it at all. Let's just assume that Donald Trump is a very, very bad criminal, that he's done all of these bad things. But we tell you that even if the leader is a criminal, the loyal followers then will still follow him mainly for the policies he offers. If they want to talk about the people on the fence, then again, I already stated in the start of my speech that these people don't exist because they have their own personal beliefs. Let me give an example of Anwar Ibrahim. Because Anwar Ibrahim has already been to prison, but people still vote for him. Even though other parties such as PN, Perikatan Nasional, has brought up his case of how he's already been to jail, but people still vote for him in the sense, and now he's the Prime Minister of Malaysia. This shows the reality of the outcome on their side of the house, that even if you show how bad this one person is, in the end, people will still vote for him because that's what they believe in. This just shows how flawed the model is on side government. On to comparatives then. Why is the first comparative? It is which side garners more voters. On side government, we tell you again that their narrow-mindedness, that they cannot sway the followers of the Republican, no matter what the Democratic Party does. This shows weakness in their case overall because they are afraid to do what's right, instead opting for what's easy. We've already proven in our strategy analysis that the strategy on side government is unfeasible. We already proven in our strategy analysis that the strategy on side government is unfeasible. But let's just assume it is feasible. We tell you that even if even if it is feasible that people actually live on the fence and that they don't know what to choose for, we still garner more voters in that sense. Why so? Because on side opposition, we propose a strategy aimed to convert right-wing populists to support the Democratic Party by showing what's good on our side and what's bad on their side. We are safer because we don't ruin the image of the Democratic Party, meaning that in the end, the chances of people actually opting into the Democratic Party is way larger. Let's just assume that there are people who don't have beliefs, that basically live on the fence, don't know what to vote for, don't know whether to vote for the Republicans or the Democratic Party. We tell you that only on our side of the case, it's only mutually exclusive on our side, that we tackle both. We tackle the people who are on the fence and we tackle the people who are already loyal to Trump at the end of the day. Let's take a look at let's look at the models of both sides. On side government, they told you then and then again on how the model on side opposition and that the model on side opposition is not feasible. We tell you that even if you want to say that the model on side opposition is bad and cannot be done, we tell you then again that the government on your side, on side government, is more or less feasible than what we have on side opposition. Because we tell you that on side opposition, even in our worst case scenario, the image of the Democratic Party is ensured. This means then that we don't bash the leaders of the Republican Party. This means that the image of the Democratic Party is ensured and is safe from the faces of the people. This means that we show the Democratic Party as a party that is benevolent, as a party that supports the rights of the people all and all again. Of course.
Wouldn't tapping into the emotional values and saying why things are principally wrong, therefore garner more values, garner more voters for the Democrats who you say are constantly
Don't you
righteous?
think that the policies that the Democratic Party has already shows the morality of the Democratic Party? For example, here in the Democratic Party side, we show that we give gay people rights, we give women rights for abortion, and we give liberal rights so that everyone in America can have a peaceful life. This is different from the other side of the house because they attack on the morality of the leader of the Republican Party in and of itself. But we've already rebutted this case in the first issue on how we leave a bad image towards the Republican Party followers and towards the whole nation as a whole. For all of those reasons, I beg you to oppose.
Thank you for this. Shall I call for an opposition reply? Yeah.
In order for opposition to win this debate, I have to prove three things. Number one, I have to prove to you how people on defense are not a problem for Democrats. Number two, I'll prove to you how Trump voters are loyal and framing bad guy would work. Number three, I'll talk about value versus emotions. So first, how people on defense are not a problem for Democrats. Again and again and again, that we stated throughout our whole speech and unengaged coming from their side. Their side did not even have an incentive to challenge the things that stated on all three speakers on how the majority amount of people on defense are actually wanting to opt into Democrats simply of the policies and value that Democrats offer. If their side really don't want to engage on that, they have to do it in reply and so. But second, on how Trump voters are loyal and framing quote-unquote bad guy, quote-unquote malevolent, Trump is cruel and whatnot would work. We tell you that this would work in both substantive speeches. On one, how exactly these Trump voters are loyal and they want Trump policy agendas in the first place. But I'm going to be very charitable here and assume that this quote-unquote bad guy policy will work considering that is the best case scenario coming from the other side of the house. We tell you that even if Trump loyal voters opt out from Trump himself simply because of framing Trump is a bad guy, we tell you that it creates political instability because Trump voters are essentially right-wing, right? We told you in all three speakers. If proposition take these right-wing populists they basically don't have any political party to cater to. They don't have any representation. They don't have any policies that they align and they are in interest with. And they won't even vote for Democrats in the first place because essentially they don't really believe in Democrats' policy. If the whole strategy comes from their side, it's just to assume and it's just to push on how Trump is a bad guy. They won't really vote on Democrats. They won't really vote on Republicans. What will they do? This is a huge outcome coming from their side, that they will leave these voters in a very shallow place where they don't really have anything to cater to, which really aligns with their political agenda, which really aligns with their interests. That's why we tell you on proposition, it is best for us to influence these Trump loyal voters into actually believing into the policies and values that Democrats have, instead of just framing out what these political leaders and ideology and the whole leaders' ideologies have. Because we tell you, throughout the three speeches, we told you about Adwa Ibrahim, we told you about Zaid Hamidi, how Zaid Hamidi has literally 43 convictions that he did in the past, but literally every single person still wants to vote for him simply because of the fact that he's a representative of a specific minority. He's a representative of a specific community, and the interest of Zaid Hamidi aligns symmetrically with the interest of these individuals. If we don't solve the root cause of the problem, if we don't eventually educate these individuals to opting into Democrats the way it really is, we tell you that their side will really gain the benefits that we gain. So at least on value versus emotions, we tell you that value wins in this clash here today. Value and policies are more important than emotions because of three things. Number one is short-term versus long-term. Sure, we concede, we agree on key speeches. We tell you that we took down the best case that emotions will work, emotions will influence individuals. But we tell you again that emotions won't really influence the whole policy of a specific party. Meaning that, again, if people want to opt out from the Republican Party and opt into Democrats themselves, they have to have an ideology that aligns with that specific party itself symmetrically and whatnot. Second is on loyalty, and thirdly is on influence. We tell you that loyalty and influence is mutually exclusive under values and policies itself, because it aligns with the political agenda that a specific minority has, that a specific community has, with certain political parties and whatnot. For all those reasons, clear ballots for cikb 17.
Wednesday's debate for the final Malaysian Debaters WSBC 2024. I now call upon government reply. Here.
Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. First, I'd like to point to you, Judge, of a few strategic call-outs. One, there have been lack of nuances because they have been saying that Zaid Hamidi is somehow a leader of the minority, where the majority here of 67% is the Malay. So I'm not entirely sure how this plays into the debate. But second, here, I have 6 clashes here to prove to you, Judge, that why win each and every single one on their best case. Right. The first thing here is that they're talking about Trump's loyal voters. I'm saying that opportunity is trying to move an immovable object here, which is already uncharitable in today's debate. But even if we take this case line, we still win on their push because the policies are way weaker in the principalities and ethics. And if you try to persuade them, especially the conservatives, I believe they want to stick to the human values more than these new people, because they believe that in trust and justice and the liberal of America, and therefore it's fair for them to remove this figurehead of Trump and weaken the case of Republicans. But then, Judge, I want to point out here that they are shooting themselves in the foot by saying that Trump supporters are not open to discussion, because then this proves that these policies pushed from them will be rendered ineffective, because now they won't be bought by these different kind of supporters. But even if so, they are not trying to claim that, the Democratic should now shift their narrative towards the conservatives. But here, note that it's very flawed, Judge, because if you shift this your political views towards the left, the right here, I'm sorry, I believe it's even weakens their case, because at best, yes, a few voters will go to vote you, but prove that where's the incentive for the conservative viewers, the Republicans, to actually want to change to the Democratic Party, who has a history of opposing views? There's no incentive for them to change, and there's no proof of a delta of better benefit on your side. But also, they failed to provide any sort of justification or trade-off of the voters that they will lose by actually changing their political ideologies. They'll lose the previous viewers that actually voted Democratic just because they were leftists, but now they'll also lose a huge amount of their voters, and therefore not in the interest of the Democratic Party itself. Here, Judge, the second part is of the contention of the certainty of these convictions. I think, again, as said in my DPM speech, I'm not sure what it's part of the debate because it's already been stated that it's quite confirmed that it's true. But even if it's not true, I believe the widespread knowledge of such of this felonies happening of Trump is enough to convince the public that these things are true and able to play out into this debate. But the next thing here is on the fact of cost and effectivity is my third push here. Because why op has to satisfy three things and they fail to do so. Of one, why is cheaper on their side? Two, why they need to fulfill less burdens? And three, reduce the fragmentization of voters. And I believe it's only able to be done. It's much harder for them to actually strengthen their party in this set, but it's more easy for them to actually weaken the opposition and therefore proves that our policy is one that is more feasible. But four, on the issues of voters, I don't understand why said opposition constantly want to push away the act of these kind of these fence sitters. Because understand, states like Illinois actually assist as battle states because there's an incentive for these both parties to actually fight for these neutral voters who actually see and shift with political landscapes. So I believe that it's one that has to be addressed because there's a large amount of population of America actually doesn't has a very strong amount of proposition of wherever they want to be. Because you yourself has proven that a lot of these voters that have a strong ideology are people that are old. So you want to target the people who actually might be volatile between these both sides. And then I would like to call out one very funny thing, which is saying we need statistics to prove. Mind you, this WSDC rules, my guy. There's no way I'm going to open my phone and actually Google for statistics right here. Now the next thing here on the weighing of the influence of a figurehead versus the policies, I don't think dealing with the aging demographic is relevant to this strategy and is also unmechanized on their side. Here is how is the best way to prove policies are ineffective against Trump, and they have already failed to do such. They have already didn't do this sufficiently because people are shifting away from the Democratic Party right now, not because of the stability and so on and so forth. People are voting for the Republican Party not because they have better policies. It's just because they believe that the Democratic Party cannot fulfill the promises that has been done and has been whistled through Biden's term, and therefore causing people to shift away. So therefore, weakening the Republican Party is actually a win-win situation for the Democratic Party as a whole. Now, last, I would like to say that which side fulfills the interest of the Democratic as the best. I believe one, we're the only side that are able to attend to the internal conflicts and the decreasing support. And while the Democratic Party is already in a decrease rate, I believe the best way of proposal is by siding with proposition, where we're trying to weaken the opponent and make him at a negative instead of trying to increase our value because of the time sensitivity and also the act of the capabilities of whether or not we're able to do this. And for all those reasons, because we are more possible, because we're more charitable, because we are able to give fair justifications for all those reasons, please side with proposition. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech. So that concludes the final for the Malaysian debaters WSDC 2024. Thank you both of you for giving speeches. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
It's twice already.
Two times.
Debate.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Dad.
How old are you?
80.
Oh, you're 80.
Hey, last time I 2 times I faced you guys very well.
3 times. No, MNSDC.
Oh, yeah.
MNSDC. You went for MNSDC. You faced it. So,
yeah, this is people are almost in the final.
yeah.
That's a very good thing that they can do. How long have you been debating? Very good. From last Saturday, actually to go to
Excuse me. Position last year. Yeah, it's small to people PM.
My full name or
Just a short name.
Yeah.
So do you want to tap?
I got paper. Use the new one.
Guys,
Thank you. Probably tag you guys later if I post anything. Yeah.
We just wait for the
So you guys going to any tournament? Oh, you guys are open to Datuk Mura.
Yeah, I'm surprised it is.
The one is to Sekolah Kebangsaan.
Yeah.
maybe it's 1.5K.
Oh, yeah.
The very long.
I think it's called Mira.
Datuk Paling.
Oh yeah, that one. The school tournament. Yeah.
Perak. They lost in semis at district.
Oh, you guys, you run the team.
I wasn't.
Oh.
What school?
Tsun Jin, independent school.
Oh, when?
Near Pudu, Berjaya. Near Berjaya. KL. KL.
What do you fight?
What did I?
In the tournament.
we are not eligible to enter.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yes. Independence of private school.
Sorry.
You've already graduated, right?
Generally, it's
No, because our school is 6-year policy, so we need to finish.
Oh, 6 years.
So I take SPM already, but then still get. No lah, because our school got UC. The one that's not government type.
This is your last year.
But just take lah, so not I don't think I'm using it, but just take for the sake of taking one. Then you can also use the name of school to enter contest on that. Better must school can fund.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the debate.
It's actually the first
prefers a world where there's no discourse. I'll just go through your account.